You ever hear the one about a kid who nearly lost his life over a peanut butter sandwich? No, really over just $3, a little boy was handed moldy bread for months, while teachers turned away, and nobody said a damn thing until a millionaire in a press suit stumbled into that cafeteria and turned a whole rotten system upside down. I'm telling you, I saw it with my own eyes, and I'll never forget how it started late autumn at Avon Elementary. Wind scraping dead leaves across a playground that looked just like the one from my own childhood, except more tired, more faded, and way more dangerous than I ever realized. I was back at my old elementary school for the first time in decades. Graham Callahan, they called me now. Not soldier, not tech guy, just a dude in a suit holding a kid's first scholarship folder, thinking maybe I could help out. Waiting in the front office, glancing out the window, I caught sight of the cafeteria, the long line of kids, the silver trays, the tired lunch ladies. Just another Tuesday, right? Only there was this one boy, 8, maybe 9, small frame, neatly combed hair, standing dead last in line, not making a sound. When his turn came, he said something I couldn't hear, and the lunch lady bent down, pulled out a separate tray, 2 thin slices of white bread with a whisper of peanut butter, nothing else. No milk, no veggies, not even a smile. I watched him walk to the farthest corner, away from everyone, sit alone, and open that sandwich. He stared at it for a long second, closed his eyes, and took a bite like he was bracing for a punch. The face he made, I recognized it. Same look my son gave me from a hospital bed years ago, poisoned at daycare while I was deployed halfway around the world, this haunted mix of hunger, hurt, and believing nobody's ever going to step in. I couldn't just sit there, you know what I mean? My feet started moving before my head caught up. I walked right into that cafeteria, sat across from the kid Jake, his name was, asked what he was eating. He flinched, apologized, like he'd done something wrong. Replacement meal, he whispered, because I forgot my lunch money. Every day, always the same. I lifted the bread, didn't need to smell it. The mold was green and black, streaked like someone painted rot right on his lunch. I snapped a photo, stood up, and told him, "You did nothing wrong. Stay right here." I walked to the counter, called out the lunch lady loud enough for the whole room. I just saw moldy bread handed to a child. "Stop everything. Right now." She said I didn't have the authority, but when I told her who I was and how fast my foundation's money could disappear, she froze. I told her I'd take responsibility. "Halt the line. We're checking every tray." Some teachers started moving, kids put down their spoons. I turned to Jake, who was still clutching his tray, wide-eyed, like he'd never seen an adult stick up for him before. That was the memento promise spoken out loud, in front of everyone. I said, "Until I know what's going on, no child is eating moldy bread here." The room went quiet, like nobody dared breathe. Upstairs, the kid's first folder was still waiting, but everything had changed downstairs in the span of 2 minutes. Next morning, I came back. The school felt different, hushed, wary. The staff looked away. The principal's door was closed. I asked for inspection reports, lists of kids who got alternate meals. The secretary played dumb, said she couldn't share that info. I told her, if no one here has an answer, I'll find it somewhere else. Out in the yard, a teacher approached me, Eliza, 4th grade. She'd seen the sandwich too. "We were told not to speak out," she said. "It's just an alternate meal." She handed me a folder, 17 kids, months of notes, some names appearing over and over. Jake was on every list. That afternoon, I went to see Jake and his mom. Apartment 2C, Edgewood, complex walls peeling, furniture secondhand, but neat. Amy let me in, her eyes tired but kind. Jake was sick, feverish. I asked if I could see his journal. Turns out he wrote everything down. Day 3, sour bread. Day 15, moldy bread, don't want mom to know. Day 19, felt cold, don't know why. Drawings to a stomach with jagged lines, an empty lunch table, a slice of bread black with mold. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" I asked. "Didn't want to make mom cry," he said. That hit harder than anything. I told Amit, this isn't your fault. Not Jake's, not poverty's. It's a system that failed, and if I didn't fight it, I was part of the problem. She nodded, holding Jake close. Right then, their tiny apartment felt stronger than any foundation boardroom I'd ever sat in. But systems don't like getting poked. The school shut me out, no more meetings, every document confidential. Even when I offered to pay for proper inspection, I got a cold email. Thank you, but internal activities must adhere to state guidelines. In other words, shut up and write the checks. That night, with help from Eliza and Malik, the night shift storage guard whose nephew got sick at a different school, I slipped into the cafeteria storage. What I found was enough to make you sick. Bins labeled returned unfit for consumption, expired meat, old bread crawling with mold, camera wires snipped, records faked, invoices stamped, and signed by Garvey Milton, the district's logistics chief. This wasn't neglect, it was deliberate. Cutting costs, rerouting spoiled goods, feeding kids garbage because nobody with power cared enough to look. I gathered everything: photos, a USB drive with inventory logs, even a rejected loaf. When I tried to confront Garvey, he smiled, poured me coffee, and told me saving money on school lunches wasn't a crime, it was optimization. When I called him out on tampered dates, returned items, he shrugged. Everyone slips up. Besides, those kids aren't anybody's responsibility. That's when I realized thought he was untouchable because no one ever stayed to fight. But this time I did. Even after they left a chicken head in my car with a note. Don't forget we can change the menu. I called the press, called the lawyers, called a community meeting. I showed the photos, the documents, the video footage. The parents, the teachers, the kids, they saw what their kids had really been eating. Jake stood up and read from his journal. Some days I ate alone. My friends couldn't sit with me because I had a different lunch. It felt like I was being punished for being poor. It wasn't just Jake, though. Amy, his mom, spoke up, voice shaking but fierce. I taught my boy to be quiet. But tonight, I know silence is complicity. People cheered louder than I ever thought possible. Whistleblowers came forward, journalists called, the school district scrambled. Garvey threatened lawsuits, but for every threat, someone else stepped forward: a teacher, a kitchen worker, even the district accountant with a folder of contracts showing shell companies tied to Garvey's own family. But the fight got ugly. Jake ended up in the hospital bleeding ulcer from months of eating contaminated food. His mom was threatened with losing her job. Online, people said I was just a grandstanding millionaire, but I didn't care. With Jake's medical report, testimony from staff, and those whistleblower documents, the DA finally pressed charges: fraud, endangerment, everything. Garvey was arrested. The school kitchen was shut down for a full overhaul. Jake woke up in the hospital and whispered, "Thank you for believing me." His mother got legal aid, a new job. Soon, 2,000 more kids were eating real lunches. Eliza and Evelyn, the accountant, came back not for revenge, but to help rebuild. Look, maybe it started with one sandwich, but became something bigger. Change came because a little boy wrote down his pain, and a handful of grown-ups refused to let that notebook get buried. You want to know how systems change? Not by people in power, but by someone who says enough, even if their voice shakes. And sometimes the smallest voice in the room is the one that finally tips the balance. If you stuck with me this far, I want to know, do you think Graham went too far? Have you ever witnessed injustice and wondered what you could do? Drop your thoughts below. Right or wrong, justice, or just troublemaking. I want to hear from you. Because if there's one thing I learned, it's that no child should ever have to eat alone.